welcome back to my channel. Today I'm finally filming the bookshelf tour. Now this is the second time I'm filming it, so I hope it turns out good. So I have 4 bookshelves. Earlier these bookshelves had been placed outside on the balcony, but one day it started pouring really heavily here in Bangalore, and so the water was seeping in through the window and some of it was getting onto the bookshelves, and so I had a minor panic attack and I realized that I had to move them back inside the room away from the windows. Usually I keep changing the way I organize these books on the shelves. Earlier they were arranged on the basis of color and now they're on the basis of genre, which makes me a little more happier because it gives the whole library feel. I have a little over 420 books. Now I'm not going to be doing this bookshelf tour in the manner that a lot of other booktubers do it, because to take out each and every book that's on my shelves and show you the cover would probably take hours and hours. So I'm just going to show you each of the shelves and what's on them. I'll read out the names and show you the covers of a few really special editions. I thought I'd film this video quickly because I plan to unhaul a few of these books sometime in the future. So I thought I'd show it to you. I know quite a few of you have been commenting, telling me that you're eager to watch this bookshelf tour. So I'm really grateful that you're so enthusiastic. I hope you enjoy watching this video. Okay, so when you enter my room, the first thing you're going to see are these two main shelves. The one on the left, which is a little bit more square, the brown and the white one, I got it off Amazon. And the one right next to it, which is entirely white, I got it from IKEA, Dubai. Now, next to it on the adjacent wall, I have these two thin bookshelves, which I believe I got from Pepper Fry. And in between that, you can see my guitar. I don't play it anymore, but yeah, it's there. So the one on the extreme left, that shelf has all of my science fiction, fantasy, horror and murder mystery thriller books. Next to that we have the classics, the contemporary fiction, the historical fiction and some middle grade reads. And these two shelves here are full of miscellaneous reads and some non-fiction books as well. Okay, let's take a closer look at all of the shelves and I'll show you what books I have on them. So as you can see, this shelf has all of the Harry Potter books on them by J.K. Rowling. Right next to that is the first book in the Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss, which is known as The Name of the Wind. On top of that, you will see that I have a fantasy fiction by Frances Hardinge called A Face Like Glass. And on top of that is Cassandra Clare's Clockwork Angel, which is part of her Infernal Device series. The next shelf has all of my Sarah J. Maas books. So I have the first 6 books in the Throne of Glass series. There's Throne of Glass, there's Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. Then I also have the ACOTAR series, which is A Coat of Thorns and Roses, A Coat of Mist and Fury, A Coat of Wings and Ruin. In addition to that, you can see that I have Tomi Adeyemi's Children of Blood and Bone and Leigh Bardugo's The Language of Thorns, and as well as Accent Level 1 by Srijep. Moving on to the next shelf, we have the first 3 books in the Bone Season series by Samantha Shannon. That is The Bone Season, The Mime Order, The Song Rising. On top of that is the first book in the Hunger Games trilogy by Suzanne Collins, as well as Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology. Then we have the 3 books in the Lumitere Chronicles by Melina Marchetta. So the first book is The Finnegan of the Rock, the second is The Froy of the Exiles, and the third is The Quintana of Sharon. Right next to that are all the books from the Chronicles of Narnia series by C.S. Lewis. So we have The Magician's Nephew, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, The Horse and His Boy, Prince Caspian, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, The Silver Chair, as well as The Last Battle. The shelf below that one has some of the other fantasy and horror books. The first book is Ghost Hunter by Michelle Paver. Then we have Breaking Dawn, the 4th book in the Twilight series by Stephanie Meyer. The Giant Book of Ghost Stories, which has been edited by Richard Dalby. It is a compilation of horror stories by many popular authors. Right next to that is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. Then we have the first book in the Noughts and Crosses series by Mallory Blackman, Illumine and Gemina by Amy Kaufman and J. Christoph, which is a science fiction trilogy that I'm really excited to read. The second and the third book in the Twilight series is what you'll see next, New Moon and Eclipse, all by Stephanie Meyer, of course. And this here is my shelf for all of George R.R. Martin's books. The first 4 books in the Song of Ice and Fire series is missing because it's with my dad and he's reading them right now. I am going to be binge reading all of the series and all of the relevant books next year before the last season of the TV show comes out. I also have a book by Alexandra Bracken called Passenger here. Below that is A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. The book above it is A Feast for Crows, A Dance with Dragons Part 1 and 2. Right next to that is some of my other fantasy and horror science fiction books. First volume you see is Mr. Punch, a graphic novel by Neil Gaiman and Dave McKean. Right next to that is another graphic novel of Neil Gaiman's known as The Sleeper and the Spindle. I am just quickly going to show you what it looks like because it's a beautiful book. This here is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty's story. It is really gorgeous and has stunning illustrations in it. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend that you check it out. Next to that is Stephen King's Doctor Sleep. Then we have The Passage by Justin Cronin. The first 3 books in the Goddess of Partholon series, Divine by Mistake, Divine by Choice, and Divine by Blood. They're all by PC Cast. And you can see the Lord of the Rings trilogy as well as The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Above that is an Indian fantasy by Sumit Basu. It is called the Game World Trilogy, and this is a bind-up edition of the Simican Prophecies as well as the Manticore Secret. And then we have Trudy Canavan's Thief's Magic. The shelf below that is filled with all of my mythological fiction. So I have Jaya, which is stories from the Mahabharata by Devdutt Patnaik. Right next to it is this collection of Greek myths by Robert Graves, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, Scion of Ikshwaku by Amish Tripathi, Hindu Rites and Rituals by K.V. Singh. Next to that is another book by Devdutt Patnaik called Shikhandi and Other Stories. Then we have Vishwamitra by Dr. Vineet Agarwal, The Heretic Queen by Michelle Morin, Ramayana, Cradle Tales of Hinduism, Tales of Ancient Egypt. Then there's Antony and Cleopatra by Colleen McCullough. Next to that is Neil Gaiman's Anansi Boys. Now on top of it are some books by Rick Riordan. We have the first 3 books in the Percy Jackson series, that is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters, Percy Jackson and the Titan's Curse. Below that is a short story collection called Demigods and Magicians. Here are some more fantasy and science fiction books. We have J. Posse's Outriders. I really like the cover on this. I won it in a Goodreads giveaway a couple of years back, and guess what? I still haven't read it. Then we have Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Keeper of the Waters by Jenna Solitaire, another Buffy book, then a book by L.J. Smith, which is from the Night World series. The first 2 books in Alison Noel's The Immortals, there's Evermore and the second book Blue Moon. The Curse of Damini by Debajani Mohanty. Next to that is XO by Sherry Cronin. Paranormal Experiences, Firebirds, which is a collection of fantasy and science fiction stories, edited by Sharon November. Soul Print by Megan Miranda. This is the first book in a Dark Guardian series called Moonlight. It is about werewolves. So if you're interested in that, it's a pretty good book. Maybe you should check it out. The Mahabharata Code. Next to that is Maria V. Snyder's Taste of Darkness. And then we have Anuja Chandramouli's Yama's Lieutenant and the Stone Witch. Next to that is a sort of, I think, dystopian science fiction by Scott Westerfeld. This is the second book in the Ugly series. This is called Pretties. And I have two books by Charlene Harris, which is part of her Sookie Stackhouse series. The first one is Dead to the World, and then you can also see Dead in the Family, which is right next to Born at Midnight by C.C. Hunter. Silver in the Blood by Jessica Day George is also a stunning book. Not only is the cover great, the story is just as wonderful. It's about werewolves, if you didn't guess that. And finally, this shelf is the one with all of my murder mysteries and thrillers and suspense novels. So right up on top, you can see More Bodies Will Fall by Ankush Saikia. Below that is Hushabai Baby by Deepanjana Pal. Then we have The Girl Behind the Glass by Sumit Pramanik. The Krishna Key by Ashwin Sanghi. James Patterson's two books, Postcard Killers and I, Alex Cross. I've read them both and they are really wonderful. Then we have this collection of Ruskin Bond's works, Snappy Surprises and Suspense Stories. Here are the two bind-up volumes of Sherlock Holmes stories. A Murder on Malabar Hill by Sujata Massey. The Problem of Evil by Sidney Chambers. The Woman Who Saw the Future by Amit Sharma. Green Light by Kalpana Swaminathan. Then there's Stella Remington's Close Call. Maureen Johnson's The Name of the Star. Zuni Chopra's The House That Spoke, The Dark Secrets 2, which has two novels in it. Right next to that is Shuvik Bhattacharya's Murder in a Minute. And then we also have Swear You Won't Tell by Vedashri Khambete Sharma. This is a fantastic thriller suspense novel. I highly recommend that you check it out. The bottommost shelf has other detective fiction and thrillers. You can see Ian Rankin's The Flood, Mary Higgins Clark's Santa Cruz, The Last Templar, The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher, Celtic Fury by Sean Kenny, The Gargoyle, two books by Jeffrey Archer, Robin Cook's Charlatans, Domina by Ellis Hilton. This Hard Drive, this is based on a true story about a man who went missing in Singapore and how his family tries to piece together what happened to him. The Scout, then there's Fraudster, Patricia Cornwell's Book of the Dead, two books by Peter James, that's Not Dead Enough and Looking Good Dead. And then finally we have Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code. The shelf next to that has all of my dad's books, and you can see Paulo Coelho's The Winner Stands Alone in 11 Minutes. Here are some more of my dad's books. There's Jackie Collins and Ken Follett. There's another Paulo Coelho, which is Brida. There's Mein Kampf, which is about Hitler. This entire bookshelf is actually one of my favorite shelves because it has a lot of my favorite books on it. The first shelf has all of my assorted classics. There's Malgudi Days by R.K. Narayan. Next to that is Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis. And then we have Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. Haruki Murakami's The Strange Library. Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. Kurt Vonnegut's God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. The Giver by Lois Lowry. Animal Farm, Little Women. Anthony Trollope's The Small House at Allington. Two books by Victor Hugo, which are the first and second volumes of Les Miserables. Then Don Quixote. And this here is one of my favorite Christmas books, which is The Christmas Stories by Everyman's Library Classics. Right next to that has some of my Jane Austen books. There's Persuasion, There's Northanger Abbey, there's Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, another copy of Northanger Abbey because this first one here was a gift to me by Deepthi, and that has some of her other works as well. Then we have George Orwell's 1984 and Toni Morrison's Race, which is part of the Vintage Mini series. Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, Tess of the Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy, Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, The Good Earth, The Count of Monte Cristo, Lady Chatterley's Lover, and another book by Shakespeare, which is some of his poems, the sonnets and stuff. There's Madame Bovary, there's Age of Innocence, and The